to The Insomniac Show with Nicolette and Brian. We'll get real deep with you, educating, inspiring, and solving problems with some of the most inspirational humans on the planet. Buckle up and come on the journey.
I'm excited. All right, guys, I'm Nicolette, and today Brian and I are here with Lauren Clemett. She is a branding specialist coming to us from Australia. So she's in tomorrow already, and she says we're going to make it there. So we're very happy. And we thank you so much for joining us today to talk a little bit about branding and also an interesting spin on branding. So we're excited.
Yeah, brilliant. It's coming to you from the future, which is always a bit strange when you think about time zones. Yeah, tomorrow will be fine. Everything's lovely, no problems at all.
I thought that was super cool.
Well, yeah, Back to the Future's got nothing on us.
That's right. Except the DeLorean.
That's
well,
true.
yeah, there is that. Yeah.
So.
All right. Well, Lauren, why don't you kick us off by telling us a little bit about your journey? And I understand there was a little bit of challenge in the beginning of your journey, the very beginning, right? And kind of led you to neurobranding.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I was born, I was a baby. So, you know, that's unusual in itself. But I know you guys are quite familiar with babies. So especially Brian with 5 of them, goodness gracious. That's awesome. So I was born in New Zealand, which is a beautiful part of the world. And most people know about it from Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit and Jacinda Ardern doing amazing things and all that sort of stuff. So I was born in New Zealand and I lived my formative years. So when I was about, I'm going to use New Zealand here at 6. When I was 6 years old, it's one of those words that they don't say in New Zealand because everybody thinks it's something else. We moved to a little place called Hunua, which is right on the edge of a large water catchment area. So about 420 square hectares of bushland, a couple of amazing big dams up there that collect all the water for the cities and all the rest of it. And I lived in the bush basically as a kid, which was awesome. And I went to a little school. I think there were 200 children at the school. So that's how small it was. And I still have this very strong memory of my English teacher kneeling down next to my desk. Now, I'm not quite so old that I can remember inkwells, but I can remember a desk that had a hole in it where an inkwell might have lived. So I'm not quite that old. And he knelt next to me and said to me, look, you're really struggling with this reading and writing stuff. And I think you've got word blindness and you're not going to be able to learn to read or write like the other children are. And I mean, that sounds like a horrible thing to say to an 8-year-old, but he knew me really well. He knew that anything he said I can't do, I was going to be out to prove him wrong. So so he was instrumental in helping me learn how to read with obviously dyslexia. And he encouraged me to get into books that I really loved. I found The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe, and I read it from cover to cover, back to front, loved the story. And he used to give me a little book of words that I would take home every night and get somebody to read out the word and I would spell it back to them. So I discovered that I could remember the shape of words in my head. And even now, if I struggle with a word that I can't spell, and there's a lot of them, I close my eyes and I can imagine the shape of them in my mind. And that helps me to spell, which is really awesome. So, so yeah, dyslexia was a big part of my life, still is. Thank God for spell check these days. And, yeah, my first book that I wrote, when I got my first hard copy of it, thankfully it was just a sample book. The first page had spelling errors on it, so that's not bad.
Look at that, and you've published 4 books. Coming from.
I'm up to about my 5th or 6th book now. So yes, absolutely.
And they told you that you might not know how to read or write. Check that out, right?
Yeah, go stick that in your pipe. Exactly.
Yeah. So let's talk about dyslexia for a second, right? So dyslexia, you know, it comes in many forms, right? People have all different versions of it. It's not like everything's backwards. Some things are jumbled. Some things are mixed up. Now, how did that work with you sort of memorizing the shape of words? Because that's interesting. Like I've never heard that before. So I would like to know a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so my dyslexia is getting the letters in the wrong order. I normally get the start of the word okay, but yeah, it's all sorts of muddled, jumbled up stuff in between. So for me to imagine what the word looks like, it tells me if it's a descender of a P or a top of a T. I can see that shape in the word and I'll remember what order that the letters go in. So that seems to work for me. As I say, much easier these days because of Grammarly and all sorts of amazing things that, still with things like Otter, the AI, the transcription service, it can't quite understand New Zealand, which is quite fun. So I do have to go back and re-spell check what I'm saying as well. But that's more to do with accent than it is to do with spelling.
So now, when you envision the shape of the words, you see like the outline of it, like here's like the B or whatever,
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
sort of a bubble shape. Is that how you see it? Wow.
Very much so. It's almost like an outline. If you remember the old cartoons and there was the old outline.
Yeah.
Wow. That's really cool, actually.
That is cool. So, okay. So now what happens? You obviously learn how to read and write, right? So now what happens next? Where do we go from here? And what makes you then decide that maybe you want to study neurobranding? And what is that? Why don't you tell us, for those of us who are not aware, why don't we talk a little bit about what neurobranding is?
Absolutely. So at 8 years old, I went, right, I'm going to learn neurobranding and I'm going to get into
there you go.
wardrobe stuff. Yeah, absolutely. So no, I still struggled through school. I was okay. I was like a B grade student. I managed to get through school. I quite liked school because there were some certain things that I loved about it. I loved being, and this is the story with most dyslexic people, is they tend to be very creative.
Mm-hmm.
So I loved painting and drawing. I had great art teachers. I loved sports. So I was always out playing bull rush or hockey or soccer or something. I was out there, and we lived in the bush. So we had lots of independence, and our family this is the era where you didn't lock your cars, you didn't lock your homes. The kids would disappear and come back when they were hungry. No one cared where we were because chances are if we cut a leg open, we knew how to fix it. All that sort of stuff. It was a great era to grow up in. So much later on in life, I got into the creative industry. So I became a graphic designer. And it's quite funny, actually. I remember when I was studying graphic design, we had an exhibition at the end of the time we were there at the college. And they invited people from the industry to come in, and basically they were headhunting the talent that had come from the college to go and work in the advertising industry. And the funny thing was, the tutors always used to run a competition. They never told the students about it, but they ran a competition to see how many spelling errors there were in all of the work that was demonstrated at this exhibition, right? And I think I won that contest. I'm very competitive, so I probably tried very hard to win that one. So loads of spelling errors, incredibly creative people, but couldn't spell to save ourselves. So, so I got into the advertising industry. This is way before computers. There were repro cameras, there was color mixing, there was all these old-fashioned litho plate making, all that sort of stuff happening. So I really learned from some people in the industry who'd been around for a long time. And it was then that I discovered in my graphic design days that I could recall, same as I could recall those shapes and outlines of the words, I could remember what logos looked like. And when I eventually worked with big advertising agencies, so I worked for Saatchi & Saatchi as a production manager for a couple of years, much later on, they would pass things by me and go, is this right? Can you just do a check of that? I was like the litmus test in the production department, is this right? And I could tell, oh, look, you've stretched the logo, or it's the wrong color, or it's last year's tagline, because it didn't look right to me. So my disability became my greatest superpower, which was awesome.
Didn't you say that?
I say that all the time. I say, like, people who have dyslexia and like ADD have a superpower normal people just don't have. Like, it's just a totally different way of seeing the world and processing things, you know? So
yeah, absolutely. There's a really awesome show called Faster Than Normal. I don't know if you've heard of that one. He's also done a program and everything else. Awesome guy. I can't remember his name. It'll come to me in the middle of the night now. ADHD and dyslexia absolutely go hand in hand, and they're superpowers. They're awesome.
They are.
Faster than normal. I gotta look that up. That sounds cool, actually. All right. So then let's talk a little bit about the science of neurobranding, right? And so what's happening there in your brain? Let's say you're recalling logos or things like that. What's happening to our brains, maybe as consumers, right? Because that's what we're going for here. What happens to our brains when we see certain things, colors, logos? What's happening there?
Yeah, awesome question. So neurobranding's a relatively new science. It's been around for about 10 to 15 years. I actually, when I heard about it and I realized, oh my goodness, there's a science behind what I do, I contacted one of the guys who's like really well-known, a guy called Peter Stahl, who actually was from Europe, but he's now based in Australia, which is awesome, which is where I live. And I've never met him, but I've spoken to him on the phone a couple of times. And it really is the brain's ability to see brands. And I put see in the inverted quotation marks because we see brands with emotion. And our memory and our recall is so powerful if you are trying to raise your awareness of your products or your services or your business. So it's quite interesting. Back in the 1970s, when I was running around in the bush and doing all these mad things, our brains were being hit with about 500 branded messages a day. And today it's over 5,000. So we just have this, they call it infobesity, this wall of information coming at us. Mm-hmm. So our brains act like a filter, and they just filter in and out the stuff that if you deem that something's important and you're interested in it, or you love the brand, or it's the sort of thing you're really into, you'll see it and you'll hear it and you'll notice it and you'll connect with it. Mm-hmm. If you're not, you won't even know it's there. There's an interesting thing, you probably know about it, called reticular activation. I don't know if you've heard of that before.
No.
Okay, awesome, cool. So reticular activation. So for example, if I asked you what was a particular brand or make or model of car or vehicle that you really wanted at one stage, you went, oh, I really want one of those. Brian, what was something that you once went, normally the guys had like, this is my dream car?
Well, mine's always, I'm a Jeep Wrangler guy, so it's always Jeep no matter what. I mean, that's what I drive. That's what I love, So
I'll try not to feel too sorry for you, so that's fine. You're coming from the country where it's Holden and Ford. I mean, Jeep doesn't even factor out here. Well, it does, but not. So when you first decided, hey, I really want a Jeep Wrangler, you probably had the colour in mind, the make and model you wanted. Mm-hmm. Did you suddenly see lots more of them?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I remember being a kid and seeing one, like the first time I saw one, I remember it, I was at the dealer with my dad. He wasn't buying a Jeep Wrangler. I don't remember what he was buying, but, and I remember seeing it and going, I want that, and then I would see them everywhere, and through until I started driving, and that's why I started driving.
Yeah. Brilliant. I love it. Obviously, your dad wasn't cool enough for a Jeep, so that's awesome. No, absolutely. So that's called reticular activation. So you've told your brain, I'm interested in that. Mm-hmm. And those Jeeps were always there. The ads were always there. The dealerships were always there. But now, because you've told your brain, I'm interested in that, it's going to remind you, hey, look, over there, there's a Jeep.
Yeah.
So, it's called.
Okay, so that's why I've been seeing. Remember I called you the other day, Brian, and I was like, have you noticed that there's a lot of Teslas around? And the reason being, so I Elon Musk was on Saturday Night Live, and the Tesla and the dodgy coin, and my father's always telling me about the Tesla stock, and for whatever reason, I started taking an interest in what was going on here with this Tesla business, and they're building the factory in Texas or whatever they're doing. Right. And then all of a sudden I started seeing all these Teslas, and I was like,
she also moved to a different area.
I also did move to it. Yes, but you said that they were here all along, right? That they were here.
No. I said, wait. So let's back this up. Nicola used to live in New York City and Queens, right? And then she moved to Long Island. Now, Long Island is a very different place. And there's like 3 Teslas
seeing them on my way to Queens in the mornings.
Well, remember too, people are going back to work now, but
that's true. It's true. No. But Tesla's been around for a while. I've never noticed. Yes. I've never even noticed a Tesla before. Honestly, I got to be honest with you. Yeah. I don't think I've ever seen them.
I do think there are more and more. But I think you also move to a location where there are more and more, if that makes sense. I think there's a lot more.
But I don't notice the Jeep on my block or the Ford or I really don't.
Now that we've talked about it today.
Now that we've talked about it, right? So I think I understand what you're saying, because it's kind of like when I say sometimes, oh, anytime I hear that song, I hear that song.
Yeah.
Yes. Right? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll remember like the sound that the ice cream truck used to make when we were a kid. We will instantly know what that is. Even if you don't see it, when someone's opening a Mac computer, because it's a different noise, right? So that's about creating something that sticks in people's brains. That's why jingles used to work so well back in the 60s. People, you can still probably sing jingles from your childhood, So it's about that catchiness, that earworm, that if you can get that into somebody's brain, that they instantly recognize it. I mean, if you've got kids, you're driving down the road, they don't even need to see the whole place. They just need to see one little edge of the golden arches.
Yeah.
And there it is. It's like, I want that, you know? So it's the recognition factor. So if you've got a brand, the way to do it is to think about the 3 R's. Recognition. So what's the recognition factor of your brand? Is it a sound? Is it a color? Is it a taste? Is it a flavor? What is something that you can just keep pumping over and over and over again until somebody absolutely recognizes it, like the badge of a car, like a Jeep. So what's the recognition factor? What is the reputation in the marketplace? And good old Jeff Bezos used to say this all the time, you know, your brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. So what do you want other people to say about your brand so that becomes an earworm and it sticks in people's minds, and next time they have that need or they decide they're interested, then your brand comes up and they know you and they see you and they discover you. So recognition, reputation, and the last one's respect. And respect is all about being consistent and saying, this is what we do and we just do this and we just do it really well. And we don't do anything else. I mean, I've got a fabulous business card. In fact, I don't know if I can find it. I'll find it on my computer. I might be able to share it with you on screen share. It came through my letterbox a while ago, and it's quite fun. It's a guy who positions himself as a cheap man with a ute, and a ute in New Zealand and Australia is a pickup truck. So a cheap man in ute. I know. Can I share my screen on here? Yes, it's letting me. Awesome. Cool. So check out this business card. This is an actual real business card. It came through my letterbox. So for those who are listening while you're driving along, if you're listening to the podcast, the cheap man in ute hire, mini moves, big moves, anything. He'll do furniture pickup, house maintenance, lift to the shops, doctors, help lifting furniture, fitting, pet feeding, walking, lawn mowing, maintenance, rubbish removal, Elvis tribute, music.
Elvis tribute.
I know. Look at
hire.
Okay.
Yeah.
What is it? A jumping castle? Is that like a bounce house? What is that?
That's exactly what it is. Exactly what it is.
And limousine. You can get wait a minute, hold on. Can you get Elvis to drive in the limousine to your bounce house and feed your dog?
Yeah, and do your house maintenance.
Exactly. So he's doing it. He's open 24 hours a day, 7 days and all holidays. So, you know, madness, but he's cheap. So if you want a brand that people respect and they want and they follow and they love, you're going to, like you said, Nicolette, what if he just chose, I don't know, what if he chose to mow lawns dressed as Elvis? Yeah, I would pay to see that, and I don't even have a lawn, right? So he could then have Marilyn Monroe, you know, cleaning your house, or James Dean washing your car for you, or whatever, you know. But no, he's trying to be everything to everyone. So yeah, so that's the idea, is like recognition factor. You've got to be known for something, choose one thing and do it really well, get a great reputation in the marketplace, and just be consistent and keep sticking to the same message over and over and over. It's boring, but it blooming well works.
Yeah, well, it makes sense. I mean, it makes sense. I mean, think about like big brands like Coca-Cola, or you know what I mean, or even McDonald's. You know, we were just talking about McDonald's. It's even when it changes their logo or their image, it's so slight. Do you know what I mean? They don't make like this massive, drastic change.
No, and when they do, I mean, Gap did it, Coke did it with New Coke and failed abysmally. No one wanted the new stuff, you know? Right. So everybody, it's funny, the brain, and I'll do another one with you, which is quite fun.
But you know what's interesting about Coke? You know what's interesting? I mean, that really stuck with a lot of people, right? Because I was just even watching Stranger Things, and that's actually part of Stranger Things, where they have classic Coke and they're like arguing about classic Coke, you know?
Crossed over into program. It's brilliant. I love it. Right. So if you think about that, again, it's a bit of neurobranding, but your brain likes what it knows. It absolutely loves being safe. Yeah, there's a thing in the brain, and I've actually got my extra brain with me today. I'm going to get it out. Show you my extra brain.
She's got props. Check it out. All right, so Lauren's holding up a brain, if you're listening, just in case.
It's probably the right size, but yeah. So inside your brain is a part of the brain, it's called, Seth Godin calls it the lizard brain. It's like the oldest part of your brain. It's called the amygdala. And it's your fear center, right? So it keeps you safe. It's trying to stop you from making all these bad decisions. And if you are looking at, you know, entrepreneurs and how they work and what they do, we've overcome the fear center in our brains. We're sort of superhumans as entrepreneurs. But the trouble is we have this bright, shiny objectitis as our kryptonite. So we don't have as much fear about what we're doing, but we've got lots and lots of creative ideas, a bit like that cheap man and ute guy with the card. but yeah, so it's all about when you make these changes, and especially if you go out and you go, right, I'm now mowing lawns as well as dressing as Albert, the people don't like it. We don't feel safe anymore. So our brains want to stay safe. So if I do an exercise with you, if you could start turning take your right foot and start turning it in a clockwise direction in front of you.
Like I'm far, but
clockwise, so your right foot, clockwise direction in front of you. If you're driving, don't do this. Clockwise direction. And now put your right hand out in front of you, poke your index finger in the air and draw the number 6 and tell me what happens to your foot.
I can't even do it. I'm stuck. I'm frozen.
I can't do it.
Nothing.
You're going clockwise with your foot? Clockwise?
Only if I move my body like this. I really, really try hard.
Clockwise with your foot, and then a number 6 with your finger, and the foot should start going the opposite direction. It'll follow your hand.
Brian's a freak of nature, so don't be disappointed.
So, and I'm like super flexible and weird stuff. So, I mean,
it's kind of like this thing, right? It's kind of
like touch your cheek, touch it, and you go touch your nose, and then they touch their.
Yeah, exactly. So the thing is, you've probably hardly ever sat there and twiddled your foot round in a clockwise direction, but you've probably written the number 6 a million times or more. So your brain forces your foot to follow the direction of your hand because it's used to writing the number 6. It knows what that is. And that's just the way the world is. People like to be safe. Our brains want to keep us safe. So yeah, if you go making drastic changes with your brand, but worse, I don't know if it's just so much, Brian, about like making big changes. If you get your messaging confused, it's all Coca-Cola, McDonald's, they've got the same message. Skoda, if I said to you, what's a Skoda? It's a cheap car. I don't know if you know what Skodas are. If I said to you, what's the other one that's, maybe it's, a big, reliable, a Chrysler. You know what that car is going to do. You know how it's going to perform compared to a Lamborghini. So, the messaging is totally different for those brands and it works.
Okay, so I have 2 questions then. And I'm going to go with the really fun one first. So where do colors and language come into this? So like, how does the color stuff? Because I'm excited. I'm curious about colors, but I do have an important question. So go ahead.
Yeah, colors are awesome. And in Western culture, it's different in Asia because, white for them is the color of death. So it's just their whiteware in their homes is green. It's not white. Because white's an unlucky colour, so let's not even go there. But in most Western cultures, white is the colour of transparency and honesty. It's what brides get dressed in when they get married, and it's what medical people wear, all that sort of thing. So it's a trusted colour. It's very transparent. So colours are really interesting. They create an emotional reaction and a physiological reaction. So, for example, blue is the colour of the sea and the sky. It's always there. It's reliable. It's believable. It's trusted. And that's why the likes of Skype and Twitter and PayPal, they all use blue because they're trying to convince you that they're safe, right? So, and you'll find lawyers and accountants will use blue in their branding, whereas wellness practitioners will use purple because it's the colour of healing and mystery and magic. It's also the colour of royalty. And there's a reason why purple's the colour of that. If you want to offer really good service to somebody and be top quality luxury, you might use purple in your branding because it says I'm going to treat you like royalty. And it's because purple's a really hard colour to make. They needed, originally in Rome, I think it was 560,000 snails to make one little cup of purple dye to dye the fabric for the royalty and for the church.
Yeah, I know even when, like in old books, if it has purple ink, it was meant for really wealthy people.
Yeah, hard to make, hard colour to find in nature, absolutely. So it was kept for royalty. So as we've gone on through the years, those colours have meant something in our culture. And they mean something. Red will get your heart going. It'll increase your blood pressure if you see something red, which is why Coca-Cola, Virgin, all these active brands, they all use red if they're passionate and fired up.
All right, so what's orange? Because I see purple and orange in your background.
Oh yeah, orange is all about, absolutely. Orange service is in there. Yeah, orange is all about energy. These are the FedEx logos. This is purple is the colour of service and quality and the real deal. Orange is energy and entertainment and taking action and getting it done, hence for the audacious agency. So yeah, our colours are very bright.
Can you tell me what if you're really dull in black and white? What does that mean?
Well, black is not necessarily dull. As I said, white is all about transparency and honesty. Black is the colour of authority. So 007, you know,
cool
and a lot of like World Wildlife Fund, their logo is like a panda, black and white, the authority and transparent and honest, you know. So Playboy is the same, but it's for different reasons. So yeah. But yeah, black you can use as well. I mean, Apple have used it for years. That beautiful silver color as well is just that sophistication without being over the top and full of fluff and nonsense. So yeah, absolutely. So it's amazing things you can do with color in terms of getting the message right.
So then to go back to my other really important question, you know, you talk about these brands, and I felt like we were talking more about brands that might have been established. Now, what about startups? How do you kind of exude this respect and the 3 R's, right? When you're just brand new, you know, how do you build that?
Yeah, it's a very good question. And it's funny, actually, most people who eventually find the audacious agency, if they've already started or they've just started up, sort of say to us, I wish I knew you 6 months ago before I did all this work, which is quite fun. But yeah, the main thing is exactly that, Nicolette. Let's go back to what do you want your brand to be known for? How do you want to make people feel? And what is the number one thing you want to stand out for in the marketplace? And it's all about emotion. People buy with emotion and they justify with fact and data and reviews and all the rest of it. But if they want something, and you've got to drive that dopamine in people's brains to want to buy something from you as a business, or to do, or to change a behavior, or to change an attitude, you've got to drive that desire. So yeah, think about what do you want your brand to stand out for? What's its purpose in life? One of the things I always ask people is, what's your brand's one word? You know, Apple stands for innovation. Coke, it's all about fun and socializing. You know, so what is your one word? Can you get it down?
Coke was about cocaine originally, wasn't it?
Well, of course it is the wind, exactly. I don't
medical,
care.
right?
Yeah,
It's medical.
medicinal purposes, yeah.
All right. So then why don't you leave us with some really good advice? How about, let's make it twofold. What are some of the biggest mistakes, which we covered that business card, right? Which was pretty big. But
there were typos in it too. And there was typos in it too, I think, actually.
So big mistakes, and then leave us with some tips to get started. If we're looking to, if we're startups, how about that? Like if we're just starting, leave us with something.
Absolutely. So I've actually thrown quite a bit of information at people's brains today. So
I'm sorry. You know, it's 7:30. I don't even know. I'm somewhere else.
So the thing is, the number one thing I see, the biggest mistake I see people make is they wait till everything is perfect before they launch their brand. And there really is no such thing as perfect. Look, we've given you lots of information today about colours and how to engage with people's brains and how to do it right and how to get the messaging right and so on. But don't wait till it's perfect. There is no such thing as perfect. In fact, the word perfect means to perfect something. Get out there. The biggest mistakes I see a lot of people make is they spend a lot of time and money building their business or building their product or creating an app or trying to create something themselves, and they don't go out there and talk about it because it's not ready yet. I haven't finished it yet. It's the wrong thing to do. You need to create a tribe. It's like the two wheels on a bike. You know, you've got one wheel of the bike is your brand and your business and your idea and your IP and what you're creating. The other wheel on the bike is marketing. And Grant Cardone says it best. He says it's not the best that wins, it's the best known that wins, right? So you've got to get out there, even if it's not ready. If you are beta testing something, or you're building a business, or you're building an app and you don't think you're ready, you're more than ready. Just get out there and talk about it. The worst thing that could happen is somebody says to you, hey, I want that now. Oh, it's not ready yet. Can I put you on my database and I'll let you know when it's ready? I mean, hello. You know, would you like to pre-order? Would you like to give me some money and I'll make sure that you're one of the first people that gets it? So, you know, how bad is that?
Yeah.
Get them to help you develop it, you know, if you're finished developing it.
Absolutely. So many brands get launched and they're sort of They're okay. I mean, look, read Shoe Dog about Nike. How many times did they get it wrong? You know, when they launched products and they launched brands and they launched shoes that didn't work and didn't fit and all the rest of it. They had to, because they needed people to wear them to give them feedback and say, hey, this isn't good enough, change this, improve that. Otherwise, how would they learn?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right. So what do you think we should do? What should we do? We always like some good tangible advice at the end.
Absolutely. So I would suggest, if you are just starting out, what is the problem that you want to solve and who do you want to work with? Start making a note about that. Even if you go out there as yourself and go, right, what are the problems that I have in life? Where are the gaps? Where are there products or solutions or services that I can't easily find that I could create a solution for? So start with that. If you've already got a business and a brand up and running, go back to those 3 R's. What is your reputation in the marketplace? When somebody's referring you, what words are they using? Are they using the sort of words you want them to use to explain what you do and what your brand is? What's your recognition factor? Is it all over the place? Are you trying to help every Mary in the dairy? Or are you being really clear about what you do and who your brand is for? Because it's really interesting, if you can master that bright, shiny objectitis in your brain, in your entrepreneurial brain, and go, right, I know I'm going to miss out. I know there's some FOMO. We just want to be really good at doing this. All of a sudden doors will open and things will start to flow a bit more. So go and review what you're doing, review what you look like online, you know, get your message really clear and just go back to those 3 R's. What is my recognition factor? What's the reputation? How can I be respected in the marketplace?
Do you think a lot of startups, they just try to focus on too many things at once, not even just getting it perfect, but they, one of the things you mentioned super early on was just doing that one thing really well or something like that, right? And a lot of startups, I think they focus on too many things because they're like, okay, here's money or possible money instead of
money. Exactly. That's a big thing.
Instead of building one thing and then worrying about moving on to phase 2 or whatever the next thing is.
Yeah, absolutely. And admittedly, there's a lot to think about when you're starting up a new business. There's a huge amount that you have to consider. But you're right, absolutely, Brian. The biggest problem we see is that FOMO keeps creeping in. You know, if I just focus on this one thing, I could miss out on making some money over here. And when you're first starting in business, I mean, I was the same. I moved from New Zealand to Australia and had to start afresh. You know, I knew 5 people in the whole country. I had to get out there and network and meet people and start offering services. But here's the trick. When I first offered my very first branding, my Neurobranding program, which was a 12-week program working with me, I hadn't even written it. Yeah, I just knew that I had the knowledge from my expertise in working in the advertising industry. I knew I had more in my brain than the entrepreneurs that I was talking to. So I chose 5 of them and I said, look, I'm going to launch this program. This is what I'm going to charge when it's launched, but I want beta testers to see if it works. Will you pay X amount of money and we'll try it out? And they did. And it was awesome. So when I did launch, and it, by the way, came down to an 8-week program rather than a 12-week program, and I had reviews, I had testimonials and case studies because I'd taken people through my process. And I did figure out that my process wasn't perfect. I needed to move a few things around.
And they paid you to build your course.
Right.
And they paid you
what was that?
They paid you to build your course, you know?
Absolutely. And that's the way to do it, is get the customers first. Is there a minimal viable product out there? Figure that out. Figure out who's going to pay for it and will they actually do it? Beta test it. And if it works, then just focus on that. Don't get distracted.
All right, Lauren, you are super fun, and I had a lot of fun. I think you're awesome. So I am sad actually. This time flew by for me because your accent is captivating too. So I will say that. But can you please?
This is an evening for you guys as well. So thank you so much.
Oh, absolutely. We were excited. We were excited to chat with you. But before we go, I would love for you to tell everybody where they can learn more about you, your company, and anything else that you're working on right now, and your books. Please tell us where we can get them.
Yeah, absolutely, of course. So the Audacious Agency, www.theaudaciousagency.com is where we hang out most of the time. Myself and my business partner, who's a stand-up comedian and a publicity specialist. So you can imagine when you get 2 of us together, it's quite fun. So we help people with branding, publicity, awards, book marketing, really getting themselves out there. But if you just type my name into Google, I am all over that thing like a rash, which is not surprising because I'm a personal branding specialist. So if I'm not doing it, then, it's not very good. So no, go and have a look at that. My book's called Selling You. It's available on Amazon. And there's a brand new book called Finding Your Brand True North coming out this year as well. So yeah, and follow me on whatever socials you want to, and I'm happy to help.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. We really, really appreciate it.
Thank you.